Good evening. We have a very large order before us, and I will ask you to cooperate and really understand everything that is said, because this is not theory, this is law in operation. If you will listen, if you will stay with me and not mentally wander off into your old explanations, there is a release waiting. But you must meet me on this ground. Never for a moment believe that you can bring forth a greater demonstration than your own state of consciousness. That is a mathematical formula. You cannot get away from it. Now, here is the warning, and I must put it as plainly as words allow. There is one phrase that will undo your entire prayer, cancel your meditation, and leave you empty even while you are being religious. That phrase is, God is somewhere else. Say it softly, think it unconsciously, imply it by your reaching, and you have already lost the presence. The fastest way to lose God is to place him elsewhere. Over there, later on, in a church, in a book, in a healer, in an event, in a better circumstance. The moment you do that, you have installed distance, and distance becomes delay. Distance becomes struggle. Distance becomes disappointment, and your demonstration dutifully reflects the premise you have accepted. Do not treat that phrase as harmless. It is not pious. It is not humble. It is the mental act that cancels the awareness of God within. It is a denial dressed in religious clothing. You may mouth sacred words. You may bow in the right direction. You may plan to get to God after the meeting, after the paycheck, after the diagnosis improves. But the inner law has already recorded your premise. God is not here. And then you wonder why nothing answers. You wonder why your prayer feels like words bouncing back at you. It is because you have silently, efficiently moved God to another address. I am not scolding you. I am rescuing you from a habit. We were born into a world that constantly suggests elsewhere authority, elsewhere power, elsewhere security. And unless you recognize that suggestion as the thief it is, it will keep you pacing the corridor between hope and fear. So our work tonight is simple and exact. We will expose this subtle mental habit that uses a spiritual mask and denies presence. We will show you how that one premise operates as law in your experience. And then, this is your relief. We will replace it with a practice so simple you can begin in minutes. A way of declaring what is true, and then being still until truth announces itself. If you will agree to this contract, no more elsewhere, then everything that follows will have a place to land. If you cannot or will not, you may as well save your breath and mine. But if you can, even for these few minutes, refuse the suggestion that God is somewhere else. You will feel a shift. Not tomorrow, not after the condition changes. Now. Because God is not coming. God is. Now let us open the word that has been hypnotizing you. Elsewhere. Elsewhere quietly divides your universe into two zones. This place, where you are, with the problem, the fear, the diagnosis, the unpaid bill. And that place, over there, where God is, where help is, where supply is, where healing is. Do you see what you have done? In the single act of separation, you have accepted two. And the moment you accept two, you have denied one. And the minute you deny one, you have enthroned a second power, even if you paint it with religious colors and call it faith. God there and trouble here is the two powers belief in a spiritual mask. Do not believe for a moment that you can demonstrate freedom while you are maintaining absence as a premise. It cannot be done. This is a law. This is not my opinion. If you grant reality to a godless spot, this room, this body, this bank account, you have assigned power to the scene. You have said, in effect, The symptom can act without God. The ledger can speak without God. The relationship can flare without God. And once you say it, your experience must play out your saying until you unsay it. Discord survives only as believed-in power. Remove the belief, and you will find there never was a second power, only a suggestion, only mesmerism, only the whisper of elsewhere. Listen carefully. You may say, "But I am trusting God, over there at the service, in that book, with that practitioner." No, that is not trust in God. That is trust in place, time, and person. That is the human mind bargaining for rescue from outside, while it maintains a sanctuary for fear on the inside. And as long as you nurse that sanctuary, you will feel two poles: hope from over there, dread from over here. That tug of war is not spirituality. It is two powers struggling under a hymnal. You will have to bring your thought to this point of absoluteness. There are not two powers, not two zones, not a sacred place where God begins and a common place where God is missing. If you make the kitchen table a commonplace, the traffic jam a commonplace, the hospital room a commonplace, you have removed God by decree, and then pray for His return. Can you see the futility of that? You dismiss presence with elsewhere, then plead for presence to travel. All the while, you have only believed a map that God did not draw. In the presence of God, error has no life. In the absence of God, imagined absence, error borrows your belief and masquerades as power. That is all it has. Withdraw the belief, withdraw the permission, and you will watch the appearance relax, subside, dissolve of its own nothingness. But you cannot withdraw belief while still uttering the password of separation. Strike the word elsewhere from your spiritual vocabulary. Right here or nowhere. One power or failure. Choose. And when you choose one, you will feel the ground under your feet change, because you are no longer living in divided territory. Now let us fasten this with a nail that will not pull out. Your demonstration cannot outrun your consciousness. The degree of harmony that shows up in your body, in your home, in your business, is directly proportionate to your realized state of consciousness. This is a mathematical formula. You cannot get away from it. Do not argue with it. Do not try to evade it by longer prayers, louder words, more candles, or more miles traveled. If within you the premise is God is over there, the result will be good is over there. If within you the posture is reaching, searching, waiting, then your demonstration will be a mirror of reaching, searching, waiting. The outer scene cannot outstrip the inner stance. You see, effect obeys cause. Experience obeys consciousness. If the bass note in you says, "I must get God," all you're doing will have the fragrance of lack, trying, straining, bargaining. That is absence wearing religious clothing. And the law is relentless. Absence accepted becomes delay experienced. But now hear the other side, because there is no condemnation in law. There is only cause and effect. The instant your premise changes from get to recognize, from somewhere else to I am, from distance to presence, that instant the magnetism of your life changes. Not by human might, not by mental pressure, but by the simple fact that realized presence dissolves imagined absence. It is inevitable. It cannot do otherwise. Do not make this mystical in a way that puts it beyond you. It is practical. Look at your day. If you start it by mentally sending God ahead to the office, ahead to the doctor, ahead to Friday's paycheck, you have started with a postponement. You will walk through hours laid out by your own premise, hours that feel like corridors between you and help. Reverse it. Begin with recognition. God is here. The life of God is the life of my being. The mind of God governs this instant. Then watch how the forms line up in proportion to that recognition. The phone call returns. The pressure eases. The idea appears. The body relaxes. Not as a reward for pleading, but as the natural sequence of cause to effect. Make no mistake. You cannot squeeze from the outer more than you hold within. You cannot get a harvest beyond the seed you plant in consciousness. This is a mathematical formula. You cannot get away from it. But because it is law, it is dependable. And because it is dependable, it is mercy. You are not at the mercy of persons, places, things, calendars, or diagnoses. You are at the mercy of your own accepted premise, and that you can change. You can stop trying to get God and start recognizing God. You can cease the postponement and declare the isness. And your demonstration will rise, steadily, exactly, to the level of that realized isness. In quietness and confidence, not in strain and search, your life will mirror your consciousness. And as you dwell in one, the forms of your day will have no choice but to witness to one. Now I want you to help me with a very simple investigation. Do not answer me with theology. Answer as if you were in a courtroom and could only offer evidence. Who told you God is not here? Who took the measurement? What yardstick, what instrument, what faculty in you ever proved distance in infinity? You say, I feel alone. Yes, but feeling is not proof. Feeling is the echo of a premise. You say, look at the condition. Let us look. Does the body know God is absent? Does an aching joint know absence? Can a chest being touched by a draft say, God is not? No, the body does not think. The body registers whatever the mind has accepted. The body has no opinion. It is a servant, not a judge. Does a bank account know God is distant? Can a ledger insist, there is no presence here? No. Numbers do not have theology. They do not know God, and they do not know lack. They record. They echo. They mirror. Does a diagnosis know God is elsewhere? Is there a microscope anywhere with a dial for omnipresence? No. Instruments measure appearances, not the invisible. The thermometer can tell you 98.6, but it cannot utter, Lo, I am with you. So again I ask, who decided that God is far away? Who declared, not here, not now, not in me? Circumstances didn't. Organs didn't. Reports didn't. Then who did? I did. Aha. Do you see the pivot? God's absence was not discovered. It was asserted. It was decreed in thought, either deliberately or by inheritance from the universal human mind, the world mesmerism that hums day and night, two powers, two places, two times. We were born into that hum, and unless you awaken, you will mistake that hum for your own thinking. You will attribute to pain, to balance sheets, to calendars, a voice they do not have. You will let the mask speak and call it evidence. But masks do not speak. Belief speaks through them. Now hear the mercy in this. What is asserted can be unasserted. What is believed can be unbelieved. What is granted power can have that grant revoked. You do not have to fight an absence. There is nothing there to fight. You have only to stop lending it your authority. Withdraw the decree elsewhere, and the entire fabric woven from it begins to loosen. In the presence of God, error has no life. In the absence of God, imagined absence, error borrows your consent and struts as power. Take back the consent, and it collapses of its own nothingness. This is not poetry. This is law. The moment you refuse to certify distance, the moment you refuse to sign the warrant of separation, that moment you become available to what is, not to what was imagined. Do not condemn yourself for having believed the world's song. All of us were rocked to sleep by it. But you are waking now. And as you wake, take this with you. No symptom, no balance, no calendar has ever proven God elsewhere. Only a thought did that. And a thought, beloved, can be dropped now. When it drops, space drops with it, time drops with it, fear drops with it, because they were all hanging on the same nail. Elsewhere. Remove the nail, and the wall is bare. Presence was never absent. You merely stopped covering it with your assertion. Now let us let Scripture shut the door on this whole travel religion. Neither shall they say, "Lo, here," or "Lo, there." For behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Hear it as an order, not a poetry line. Not, "Lo, here," not, "Lo, there." Not in a shrine, not in a time, not in a person, not in a circumstance. Within you, within you, within you. Scripture does not invite you to depart for God. It commands you to recognize God where you are conscious. And within does not mean inside the liver, inside the brain, inside a rib cage. Within means at the point of aware being, where consciousness is awake to itself as presence. That point is here, and that time is now. How did the Master work? Not by traveling to a power. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Do you hear the map erased? He did not say, "The Father beyond the blue," or "The Father at the temple," or "The Father when the stars line up." The Father within me. That is operational. That is law. The activity of God is present where consciousness yields the belief in a second place, a second power, a second time. When he said, "Lo, I am with you alway," he did not write an itinerary. He revealed omnipresence, one without else, presence without elsewhere. In him we live and move and have our being. Not occasionally, not seasonally, not post-miracle, now. Therefore, true prayer cannot be the dispatching of thoughts to a remote deity. True prayer is the cessation of dispatching. It is the yielding of the human mind's traffic until the word that is already present may be heard. The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. Nigh thee, nearer than near, the interior nearness that is identity itself. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet. Not a little room with walls. The closet is that inner stillness where taking thought ceases, where reaching ends. Take no thought. Why? Because thought that reaches affirms distance. Silence that listens recognizes presence. And then, without strain, without power, You hear what can only be heard in oneness, the still, small assurance. All is well. God is on the field. So let the Bible take away your last excuse for postponement. It does not ask you to send a message. It asks you to surrender a habit. Not, "O God, come," but "Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth." The difference is everything. The first invents a gap and then pleads for it to close. The second denies the gap and stands receptive to the Father within, who doeth the works. This is a mathematical formula. You cannot get away from it. If you obey the order, recognize the kingdom within, your demonstration will follow in proportion to that recognition. If you disobey and keep a secret "lo there" in your heart, your demonstration will postpone itself to your imaginary there. Now, quietly, let Scripture be your practice, within you. Whisper it when the world shouts elsewhere, within you. Let the mind stop traveling, and in the pause, you will find you have not moved at all, and yet everything has changed. God is not coming. God is. And the isness is the kingdom, and the kingdom is within you. Let me show you the mechanics, because until you see how it works inside, you will keep trying to do two opposite things at once and wonder why nothing answers. The mind that reaches outward is not listening. It cannot listen. Reaching sets the faculties in motion: comparison, measurement, evaluation. How far is God? How long will it take? Which remedy? Which person? The moment you engage those gears, you have moved into travel, into mapping, into distance. And in distance, there is no receptivity, because listening is not a movement out. Listening is a yielding in. You cannot go out and in at the same time. You cannot push and receive at the same time. You cannot listen and reach at the same time. Here is the paradox that has cost you years. You may speak the most beautiful prayers, quote the most sacred words, and yet, if under the words is the premise, "God is not here," the prayer itself becomes a confession of separation. It is a polished form of "lo there." You are announcing absence and asking it to become presence. That is why the Master said, "Take no thought." Not because thought is evil, but because thought that measures, reaches, compares, affirms distance. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door. Shut what door? The door of roaming thought, of estimating, of bargaining? Close the traffic. Until that door is shut, you are praying to a God you have just escorted outside. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Reaching is might. Listening is grace. Elsewhere is effort. Within is receptivity. Every time you lean forward in mind, you lean away from the place of hearing. Try to tune a radio while shouting into the speaker. It will not work. The broadcast is not produced by your voice. It is received by your quieted dial. The still, small voice does not enter a storm of self-generated sound. Be still and know that I am God. Be still first. Know after. The knowing follows the stillness because the knowing is not human thought. It is the word revealing itself where the clamor has ceased. This, now, is why multitudes of sincere people pray and pray with tiny results. They have been trained to make prayer a project, to add miles and minutes and methods, to schedule God for Friday's paycheck, to locate God at the doctor's office, to attach God to a meeting, a sacrament, a person. The premise was always later and over there. And law, being just, return to them exactly what they planted: delay and distance. Do not accuse God of silence. The room was filled, not with presence which needs no filling, but with the echo of reaching. There was no ear left to hear. Think in simple terms. You cannot drink while blowing through the straw. You cannot inhale while you are exhaling all your might. You cannot receive the word while you are projecting words outward. Stop the projection, and hearing begins. Not by will, not by strain, not by a new technique, but by grace. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. The instant reaching subsides, receptivity appears, and with receptivity, recognition. And with recognition, the law operates. Presence reveals, and the form of your day bears witness. Now we replace the habit with a practice. One practice, one treatment for everything under the sun. Do not argue for categories. Do not imagine that a physical claim is one kind of power and a financial claim another kind of power. There are not kinds of power. There is one. Therefore, there is only one need in every case: the conscious realization of God's presence. Whether it appears as sickness, fear, sin, confusion, delay, whether it calls itself personal, domestic, business, national, it is all one presentation of the same suggestion: elsewhere. And there is one response. Step 1 is the declaration of truth. Not as magic words, but as alignment. You state the negation and the truth. God alone is power. Therefore, nothing that can be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled is power. Disease is not a power. It is a belief. Fear is not a power. It is a belief. Lack is not a power. It is a belief. Circumstance is not a power. It is a belief. Time is not a power. It is a belief. Place is not a power. It is a belief. I withdraw my consent from two powers. I refuse the suggestion of elsewhere. I acknowledge one, invisible, infinite, indivisible presence. Where I am, God is. In Him we live and move and have our being. The Father within doeth the works. Because God is all, no second cause exists. Because God is power, no rival power can appear. Having stated this, you have not changed God. You have changed your premise. Then step 2, and this is the prayer. After you have declared this truth, stop talking. Take no thought. Sit in complete stillness. 1 minute. 1 1/4. 1 1/2. 2 minutes if you can. You are not composing ideas. You are listening. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Let the mental wind die down. Let the reach subside. Rest the tongue, rest the reasoning, rest even the holy phrases. Be still and wait. Do not try to help God speak. Do not try to coax an answer. Listen without leaning, without demand. What happens? Do not look for fireworks. Often it is the gentlest evidence. A deep breath you did not take, a soft release in the chest, a lifting. Sometimes just the quiet sentence that is not a sentence at all. All is well. God is on the field. No voice may be heard, and yet assurance registers. That registration is the word moving as your awareness. And when it registers, the treatment is complete. You do not add to it. You do not push it into matter. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. You are not trying to heal. You are not sending a force across miles. There are no miles in omnipresence. You are not improving a condition. You are witnessing the absence of a second cause. In realized presence, the picture that called itself trouble dissolves of its own nothingness. If, in your minute, nothing seems to register, do not strain. Open your eyes, go about your duty, and return. Another minute, another listening. You are training receptivity, not manufacturing results. It is one and the self-same treatment for the headache and the heartbreak, for the unpaid bill and the restless child, for the guilty memory and the ominous report. Declare truth, then be still. Because the need is always presence realized, the practice is always the same. Replace elsewhere with this two-step, and proportionately to your willingness to listen, demonstration will follow. Quietly, lawfully, inevitably. Let us bring this down to the pavement where your feet are. Take an inventory, quietly, honestly. Pain in the back, a diagnosis on the table, unemployment, bills due, a child in addiction, a loneliness that gnaws, tension in the marriage, a fear of the headlines. Now, in each case, where did you place God? Later? There? If I can. When it happens. After the test. When Friday comes. If only he changes. If only I get that call. Do you hear it? The mind has quietly moved God out of the now and installed him in a condition. That is elsewhere theology, dressed up as prudence. Listen to the phrases the human mind loves. If I can get to the right practitioner, then God will show up. If I can find the right medicine, then God will work. If I can secure the right job, then supply will come. If we can fix this relationship, then peace will return. All of that sounds pious. It is rank postponement. You have not offended the doctor or the employer by seeing them. You have offended grace by assigning power to them. You have said to a form, "Be thou my God," and to the presence, "Wait for me over there." And law, being exact, will return to you exactly that picture. Help that stays where you placed it. Not here, not now. Do not misread me. You may keep your appointment. You may take the interview. You may answer the letter, pay the bill, sit with the counselor. Means are not enemies. They are pictures. The issue is not the human channel. The issue is the power you secretly awarded. Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Above does not mean sky. It means source. When you walk into any office, let your premise go before you. The Father within me, he doeth the works. The stethoscope, the checkbook, the keyboard, the signature, the conversation. These are not power. At best, they are witnesses to the one presence that is already here. Treat them as witnesses, not as gods, and watch how they take their rightful place, useful, harmless, obedient. Now the practice in the moment, and I want you to memorize this until your very breath knows it. At the threshold of fear or need, stop. Do not travel in thought. Declare truth, simply, exactly. Father, thou art here. Thy grace is here. This appearance is not power. I yield. Then take no thought. 1 minute, 1.25, 1.5. You are not adding words, you are listening. Be still and let the inner registration come. A release, a breath, the quiet, all is well. When it registers, you do not improve upon it. You move as led, or you wait as led. But the premise has changed from getting to recognizing, from channel to source. Try it in the doctor's room. Instead of sending God ahead, recognize God here. Then let the examination proceed as a scene under grace, not a court with two powers. Try it at the desk with the unpaid bills. Stop locating supply at Friday. Recognize presence now. Then pay what you can, write what you must, and watch ideas, adjustments, and right timings appear in proportion to your realized isness. Try it in the heat of argument. Withdraw when he apologizes. Realize, I am here. Then speak or keep silence from that inner assurance, and feel how tones soften and solutions show. When the old appetite calls, do not place freedom in tomorrow's resolve. Recognize the holy now. Yield a minute to stillness, and notice how the compulsion loses breath under a sky with no second power. When the news shouts fear, refuse to locate safety in borders and policies. Realize omnipresence as the only atmosphere, and then do the sane, practical thing as one governed by peace, not by panic. This is the same law we have been hammering. Demonstration cannot outrun consciousness. As your consciousness shifts from outsourcing to indwelling, from if, when there, to I am, here, now, your experience will reshape itself exactly proportionately. Not by might, not by human arrangement, but by the spirit recognized. Every problem becomes workable the instant you stop postponing God to an external condition. The minute you replace elsewhere with presence, the forms, the channels, the persons, the timings align to bear witness. God is not coming with the prescription, with the paycheck, with the next week. God is, and because God is, grace appears as what is needed, where you are, in the very now that you refused to abandon. Now we have to nail this into your day, because the world will try to take it out of you before breakfast. World mesmerism is not a headline. It is the pressure behind every headline, statistic, forecast, family story, and medical prediction, whispering the same lie in 10,000 accents. Elsewhere. It sounds like news, like prudence, like tradition. It runs in the family. The experts say. The market shows. Flu season is coming. At your age. In this economy. After what happened. Hear through it. All of it is one suggestion. There are two powers, and God is not on this scene. If you wait to answer that after the day has begun to argue with you, you will spend the day arguing. Protect yourself beforehand, preferably early in the morning, before the first report gets a hearing. Sit and establish the day. Quietly, deliberately. This is God's day. Not a human day with occasional divine interventions. God's day. In Him we live and move and have our being. The kingdom is within me. There are not two powers. Nothing I can see, hear, taste, touch, or smell is power. All power is invisible, indivisible presence. Therefore, fear, backed by numbers and names, has no law to sustain it. I refuse the suggestion of absence. I rest in one. Say it once, say it twice, but say it as law, not as hope. You are planting your cause. Experience will obey it. Then give up the word power and substitute the word grace. Let that be your pivot for the whole day. Power invites wrestling. Grace invites yielding. Power is a tug of war. Grace is flow. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. Make that substitution in your vocabulary, and you will feel it in your nerves. I will not power my way through this day. I will let grace define it. The moment you do, the reach softens, the listening begins, and you are back in the within, where hearing is possible. Now the simple rhythm. 1 minute of truth. 1 minute of silence. Then go about your day. Do not wait for a mood. Do not try to feel holy. Rest in principle. If assurance registers, a breath, a release, the quiet, all is well. Fine. If not, rise anyway. You have set the premise. As you move through the hours and the world's chorus tries again, on the phone, in the waiting room, at the desk, drop into 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Father, thou art here. Take no thought. Listen. Then proceed. Many brief returns are better than one long siege. You are not manufacturing outcomes. You are refusing absence and remaining available to presence. Make a practice of catching the suggestions as they dress themselves. When a headline shouts numbers, silently answer, numbers report. They do not govern. When a family pattern steps forward with its genealogy, answer, heredity is not law. Grace is law. When a medical forecast lays out a timetable, answer, time is not a power. Omnipresence is. When an economic fear predicts lack, answer, supply is not in channels. It is in God. You are not arguing with facts. You are withdrawing your signature from their implied second power. You are refusing to certify elsewhere. Stability is not an accident. It is the fruit of this daily refusal and this daily listening, before the day argues with you. Do this, and you will discover that crises shrink to scenes under grace, that delays lose their authority, that fear cannot hold its shape in a consciousness that will not give it law. Demonstration will keep pace with realization, quietly, proportionately. Not later, not there, now, here. God is not coming to your day. God is your day, and in quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Now let us close the circle with clarity so plain you cannot misunderstand it. Do not call God somewhere else. The instant you do, you have erected a wall that does not exist, and then spend years building ladders to climb it. That is the tragedy of prayer as travel. That is the fatigue of religion that postpones. One mental act, elsewhere, builds the barrier. One spiritual act, recognition, removes it. This is not sentiment. It is law. You cannot get away from it. And now the promise. Because Spirit never leaves you with a no without revealing the yes that is its heart. The moment you stop projecting God outward, you discover that the very consciousness aware of the problem is the place where presence is realized. Not over there, not when, not if. Here, now. The kingdom of God is within you. Within does not wait. Within is. Lo, I am with you always. Does not schedule itself. It announces itself. Demonstration cannot outrun consciousness, and it will not lag behind it. In the proportion that you release the belief in distance, realization appears. And in that same proportion, form bears witness. This is a mathematical formula. You cannot get away from it. Therefore, hear the final imperative, and take it as your working order. Be still. Be still. Be still. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Take no thought. Let the word be heard. Let it utter itself within you. Not by might, not by argument, not by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. You do not bring the sun by tugging at the blinds. You lift the shade, and light proves itself. You do not haul God down by effort. You cease the reach, and presence announces, I am. So this is your charge for today. When the thought elsewhere arises, catch it. Drop it. Do not entertain it for a second. Declare truth simply and exactly. God alone is power. The kingdom is within. Father, thou art here. Then enter silence for 1 minute. 1, 1.25, 1.5 if you can. No words, no mapping. Listen. If assurance registers, a breath, a release, the quiet, all is well. Rise and go on. If it does not, rise and go on anyway. Return again in an hour, in a moment, in the hallway, in the car. Many brief returns. Trust the proportion law. Each refusal of elsewhere clears the dial. Each minute of stillness tunes it. The broadcast was never absent. Carry this with you as a settled promise. God is not at a distance. The only distance is the belief called elsewhere. It can be replaced now by stillness and recognition. Not later. Not when conditions improve. Now. Here. In Him we live and move and have our being. Let that be the last word and the first act of your day. God is not coming. God is. God is. God is. And in that isness, all that needs to be will show itself, faithfully, proportionately, as grace. Be still and know.